the dogs.
I know.
It's so good.
Hanging out with us. Okay. Well, here we are at NAA Apartmentalize. I am Stephanie Brown, and I'm with Reba. I am here with Carol Enoch, and she is CEO of Enoch and Company. And Carol, thanks for joining us.
Thanks
We
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
For those of you that can't see, our microphone has little puppies on it, so if you see us looking down, it's because there's real cute stuffed dogs close by.
That goes with us at Reba everywhere, it seems. So follow along with our mascot. And so tell me a little bit about what you do, how you formed Enoch and why. And
Yeah, so we're a multifamily advisory firm. We work with property owners, operators, and technologists to find value in their businesses. So on the property owner and operator side, that typically looks like asset management, maximizing revenue streams, looking for areas within both the investment and within their operations where they can do things the way that they want to do them or do them better. On the technology side, what that will typically look like is market research, business development planning, and partnership opportunities within multifamily.
that's great. We've been talking a little bit about just what it's like in the climate right now. And I personally, I've talked to several asset managers, and they said we're really focusing on expenses right now. So it seems like they've given up on the fact that there's still value on the income side. They feel like, that part's pretty hard right now. But what do you think? What have you found?
I agree, and there's still room for some growth. So yes, rents are compressing. Yes, we're in a cycle that's tough from a net operating income perspective. And I think a lot of times in the traditional asset management model, we're very focused on how can we manage that expense line item when we're trying to make net operating income growth. And a lot of that is because in the asset management industry, a lot of it came out of banking. So we're super focused on the finance piece of things. I have a background in sales and marketing, and I'm extremely top-line revenue focused. And so I believe and I know that you can drive revenue through strategic action. And that's a conversation that will typically go one of two ways when we're talking with owners. Some are not interested in that and they want to take a very conservative approach. Some are interested in investing marketing dollars to get that return on your top line income. But what we're talking about right now that's very effective across the board is finding money you already have. So think about digging for loose change in the couch cushions. That is your money, you already had it, it fell on the couch cushions and you forgot about it. We started a line of business recently, honestly, purely by accident. We had a client that had an audit that needed to be performed as they transferred some assets into a fund. So it's a compliance level audit, making sure that we are having a clear picture of the position of the property in the moment. I am a revenue junkie. I cannot go do an analysis of an asset without looking at where is there revenue that can be found. So my team understood we're looking for compliance. We have to make sure that all of these items are here. And any opportunity that you see to find income that's already there, missing income, let's do it. We processed 2,227 units in this audit in money that was already there. So we're talking about parking fees that didn't get placed on ledgers, renewal increases that didn't get plugged into the property management software, missed amenity charges, which we'll talk about that a little bit more later. We found an average of $44,000 per asset in untapped revenue per year, which is a significant amount of money. And one of the things that's so remarkable in this particular scenario is that these are Class A managed assets. So not Class A in terms of the asset class, it's varying asset classes, but the management quality, the operations quality, very, very, very high here.
So what do you think, why do you think that perhaps some of this was missed or wasn't seen, so to speak, forgotten about?
There's a couple of things. I think the first thing is systems. A lot of our legacy systems are embedded in operations and in asset management, and we have all of these add-ons. So we have fragmented systems that in order to process one lease audit, it took us 17 clicks to get through. And so what that immediately tells me, it's not an operator error, it's not even necessarily human error, it's giving you space for balls to get dropped. So this is not a case of somebody not paying attention, it's a case of we have a system error. Now, we are all human, we all also know what it's like to work on site. So you're sitting down as the general manager, you're processing a renewal agreement that a resident has just signed in Blue Moon, and your maintenance person comes in and says, hey Stephanie, we've got a fire alarm that's going off in building A, I need you to come right away. And you go, okay, no problem. You close your laptop, you walk over, you handle your emergency, you come back, and you might have forgotten to put that dollar amount in the property management software system. Now, all systems are different. If you have a system that's fully integrated, amazing, but none of those are perfect either. So then the other thing is, if you're auditing yourself, you're gonna overlook the same mistakes that you make over and over and over again. And time management. Operations is really, really hard. It's very time consuming. We ask our site teams to take on a lot. They are responsible for managing our assets every single day. So we need somebody else to look at their work and just make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be.
And don't you think that when you come onto an asset, there's kind of a set it and maybe forget it mentality, like it's done, we've done this already. And so they're not taking another look at it, maybe 6 months down the road, and there's turnover there at the property.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So there's a couple of trigger points where you'll have information drop off. So any kind of disposition, you have a sale, you're going to go in, you're going to do a huge due diligence, you're going to make sure everything is where it should be, in theory. What really happens is that we do those check boxes for the bank, you get on site, you're scrambling trying to get everything ready. You've got your 30, 60, 90-day plan that you've made with your property owner, your asset manager as that operator, and that's what you're focused on. So yes, that becomes a little bit set it or forget it. Or if you do have the luxury and you have a really strong transition team that makes sure all your T's are crossed, I's are dotted, it can be easy to, once things are going smoothly, everybody's happy with revenue, you're meeting budget, you coast a little bit. It's human nature. Again, it's hard work, but we can't just coast.
No. And I think that that's what you found through these audits. Mm-hmm. And so tell me a little bit about the findings in terms of what you uncovered, kind of the loose change that you found.
Yeah, so the loose change that we found, and I want to be clear, I mean, our company can come in and do this for you. We would be happy to. You can do this yourself. This isn't something that has to be a complex process. It's really about knowing where to look. So most of the revenue that we found, and I do want to point out, it was a very manual process in the specific case study that we're discussing today. We went through lease files, pet riders, we went through renewal agreements. We're going through all kinds of information. We happen to be having a conversation with Reba about something totally different. I brought up that I was doing this audit, and Tim McGurney said, oh, we have this amenity analyzer. It might be a really good product for you to use here. And, I'm not, trying to plug, but I think the point is we have this efficiency tool. We spent 378 hours auditing these 2027 apartments. We spent 17 hours using the amenity analyzer on this project. It's a big difference in time. Huge difference in time from a time management perspective for us. We found 86% of the revenue, which means that Reba found 24% of the revenue. Oh, sorry, I'm getting this wrong. We found 66% of the revenue, which means Reba found, or not Reba, we did, but through the analyzer, found 33%. And we spent 86% of the time, which means it was 24% of the costs, rather. So really great numbers to look at here. Sorry, I got a little like kerfuffled about them. But this shows us within our own practice how big of a difference it makes when you have great technology that can support what you're doing and automate the things that need to be automated. So that's my little talk about the timing. In terms of the areas that we found, a lot of it was in renewals. A lot of it was in, just missing those renewal dollar amounts where we got the lease assigned and they didn't make it into the system. Parking is a big one. We had an instance where we had parking agreements signed for all apartments because there were enough parking spaces for all apartments. The charges weren't listed on the agreements, and maybe this was a system error. Like, we don't know that information, but only certain apartments were being charged for parking. So we're unclear on how much should they be charging, and the site teams are going to go back and find all of that information. And then on the amenity side, we found buildings that didn't have a corner unit amenity premiums at all. There was no premium there. Or we would find a lot of premiums that were maybe $0 that they would list as an upgrade, but then there would be a $0 amenity charge. So we go, okay, well, does this have upgraded cabinets? Really? And it's $0? Are they bad cabinets? Or are we missing an opportunity for income here? And then
so you're at least asking the question so that then you can take it back to the teams and they can answer that.
That's right. Absolutely.
So talking about that, what happens after you've uncovered all of this and report back? What next?
So this can get handled any number of ways, and it's really about what the client wants. We will put together a comprehensive report showing our findings and recommendations, because over half of my team have worked on site at some point, and we understand what operations are like, and we're very sympathetic to that. These teams are working very, very hard, and we are here as an assist and a support to them. Again, we want to be adding value at all times, not just financially, but from a time management and a customer service perspective as well. If I'm not adding value, I'm not in business. Period, end of story. So we put together a report, we put together recommendations, and we put together in our findings the raw checklist. And it's a very simple document in Google Docs. This is not fancy. With every single apartment, every area that we checked, what they're missing, what they need, with notes on the side. And this got presented to the operator. And before we even met with them to go over everything, in person, they had started executing some of the changes. And something I'm super proud of, and I will say I did not make this output, my team did it, they're phenomenal. The operators said the output was easy to use, simple to follow. Their team could go in and immediately start making these changes, because everything we put forward to them was something they could execute that day immediately.
And given the amount of time that you put into it, and then it took to actually do these audits, and then to simplify and take all that work, we started by saying how much the site teams have on their plate, how much the regionals have on their plate, and they have fires and floods. And
yes, they have real emergencies.
They have real emergencies. And so even though this is absolutely important, it also takes time and really focus on this specifically, and sometimes they get distracted from that. So that's the value, and then to actually be able to turn around and give them something simple to execute
yes.
on is gold.
Yes, 100%. And I mean, we can execute for them. It really is whatever the customer wants. If they want their team to do it, if they want us to do it, we're agnostic.
So you can do it as well if
we've got logins and absolutely, 100%.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's incredible. I mean, it's kind of a win-win, right? I mean, what would you say? So the value that you found far exceeded what is charged for this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're working on our pricing for it too, because we priced everything out before we discovered, amenity analyzer, right? And so with the amount of time that saved, and that was an add-on for this, just to be clear, so there wasn't any, I promise we charge our clients fairly. In fact, very fairly in this circumstance. We gave them a very fair price. So the more technology that we can get behind what we're doing, the more reasonable the cost is going to be for our client. And we're looking at and talking with groups to understand what resources are out there in terms of those lease audits. I do think that from our perspective, having professional former operators, former leasing directors really dig in and analyze what's going on is very useful. It's hard for me to imagine that a purely AI-driven audit would yield the same results, because by digging into the system, that's where we discovered some of the operational shifts that could be very impactful. But in an ideal world, our technology is growing with our need, and so eventually there'll be no need for this, right? Because we'll have systems in place that will help catch us, and then we'll move on and find value in other ways for our clients.
We have to admit our industry is not as quick to adopt technology, or it hasn't been in the past. I mean, you and I have both been in those seats for a while, and I can say that I wish I had something like this when I was in operations.
Oh, me too. Or as an asset manager, I would have loved for someone to do this for me. Because if I came to my investment committee and said, I just found an extra $40,000 per year on each asset, I mean, that, like, what a win, right? That we don't have to, not that we don't have to do anything for it, because I don't want to glaze over the fact that it is work to come in and find this, but we're not implementing new programs. We're not adding, upgrades to the building. It's there.
And is it fair to say that every property that you've audited, there has been findings?
Every single one.
Yeah. That's what's been my experience. But
yes, every single one. Even the rent restricted or the affordable communities. And a lot of that is in compliance. What you'll find, especially if you have turnover with your management companies or turnover with your managers, there's so many regulations in that space. It's very easy to miss your filing deadlines. It's very easy to miss your rent increase deadlines. One of the biggest things that we find too is, and I don't know a perfect way to handle this, but when you're looking at your occupancy in those units, you will often have overoccupied apartments, and that puts a strain on your utilities, your resources, and the physical condition of those apartment homes. So, those dollar amounts aren't going to look like the market rate dollar amounts, but they're still very impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people miss that fact. They don't think that there's going to be an impact looking at the affordable communities. You're right.
We have to look at everything. It's the same. I mean, I've done lease up work for years, right? And all the time, people in the industry, on the owner side, on the operator side, on the maintenance side, the architect side, they're like, oh, it's a new building, you won't get any work orders. Let me just tell you, that is incorrect.
We know this.
Or we won't need a big maintenance budget because everything's under warranty. Well, it may be under warranty. If you've got a Class A luxury building, which is a lot of what we've been constructing over the last 10 years, now we're moving more into workforce, which is phenomenal. Those residents do not want to wait the 2 weeks that your vendor who has you on warranty is going to take to come out and solve a problem that they don't view as a habitability issue. So, anyway, there's no free lunch, there's no perfect system, but anytime we can look critically, be objective, and try to take a fresh perspective on something, we always will find opportunity and value, every single time.
Well, I'm going to pivot a little bit and ask you about the white paper that you just published.
Yes! Oh my gosh, we're so excited. This is like a totally different piece of our business that we're having way too much fun with, which is market research. We recently partnered with a phenomenal technology group that's in the commercial office, multi-tenant office space. It's moving into multifamily, called OpticWise. They provide digital infrastructure and managed Wi-Fi. And something that's really unique about them is that they've worked in multi-tenant office for 17 years. They deeply understand how all of the structure works, security, all of these things that when we moved into the COVID space and people started working from home, multifamily had to find out the hard way and you know, thinking on our feet. You know, one of the, just anecdotally, we were doing some market research for them. We interviewed a property manager, and they had, but based on their location, a ton of folks that worked for a bank, a very large bank that we would all know who it was, that were all of a sudden working from home. And that bank sent a technology team to come out and wire and get everything prepped and ready to go so that their internet was secure for the work that they were doing. This was before they hired our client. Our client was like, well, this is just what we do. This is what they have to do for office anyway. So it's a really great opportunity. And they wanted to understand more deeply the multifamily space. And so we've been partnering with them on a research study around what owners want to find insights into future-ready living. Because much like we're talking now about changing the couch cushions, if you're planning ahead and investing your resources as effectively as you're able to with the information you have at the time, you're going to be set up much better for success in the future. So we interviewed multifamily stakeholders, senior vice presidents, C-suite level decision makers in ownership roles, in asset management roles, operations, architecture, marketing, to understand from their perspective what's critical to them as they prepare and plan their assets, either existing or new development, for the future. And we ended up with over 400 pages of transcripts, distilled it into a white paper that has 7 key sections. So it's long, but it's designed so that you can find something specific, read through, gather insights, put it away, pick it back up. We have a couple of takeaway one sheets. We've got a future-ready checklist that's meant for any company. So the paper is meant for anyone that works in multifamily. Technology, supplier, owner, operator, anyone should find value here. It's why we wanted to make sure we had a really diverse group of folks that we were interviewing, because we really wanted to understand what was important to them. And every time we do our market research, we typically start with a base point of view from our client, which is, okay, we have this idea we want to execute. We think it's a good idea, but we're not sure. And the best way to find out is to ask.
Get curious.
Right? It's to get curious, it's ask questions. And the firms that we partner with, we have 2 firms that we work with when we do this type of work. One's a behavioral science firm, and the other is an ethnographic research firm. So we use objective third-party researchers, and it's a deep dive scenario. So, for example, when these folks are interviewing in our multifamily stakeholder group, they didn't, you can take a survey approach, which might be something like, do you think digital infrastructure is important for future-ready living, right? Or what technology do you think is important for future-ready living? And you're going to get a set answer. But if we ask them things like, what do you think the most important thing is going to be in multifamily in 20 years? You're going to start to get deeper, richer information that's leading you somewhere more substantial.
Instead of just taking a look in the rearview mirror and seeing what worked and projecting it out 1 or 2 years. And saying, well, we did really well with this, and this is what we think is important now, and then building the same thing. This is really looking far into the future.
Yes, that's right. And so, I'm proud of it. I'm biased. We co-wrote it with our behavioral science expert, Ryan Goebel, who's amazing, and our partners in Apartmentalize, were very instrumental in, having it. But it's a completely objective. They weren't instrumental in terms of making it, actually making the paper, but in terms of funding it and making sure that we're getting the information out there. And I love that they did it because they wanted to learn. And that's incredible.
It is. And just, I love your forward thinking. You've always been forward thinking. And where can people find the white paper?
It's on our website under our resources section, and our website's enochco.com. That's enochco.com. We have it posted on LinkedIn. My beautiful marketing team has a whole plan for breaking things down and delivering out in bite-sized pieces. Thank you to all of you for making me look smarter than I actually am all the time, which is not always easy. But yeah, it's. I'm really proud of it. I think it's a great resource for anybody in the industry. And if anybody has questions about it or wants to know more, they can reach out always.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed talking with you, and that's it from our side.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Hopefully you have lots to work with. Lots.